Shut up and sit down.
We're back inside Wisconsin. Trevor Thomas, Chief Meteorologist at Channel 12 in Milwaukee, Mark Baden, and Chief Meteorologist at Channel 5, Luke Sampe. Guys, does that ever get old? Chief Meteorologist. I mean, it's a big title and a lot of responsibility, but you worked your entire life to get to this point. Does that ever sound weird, or are you just used to it, I guess?
You know, it wasn't a goal. When I got into this, first of all, when I became a meteorologist, it was my goal to be a meteorologist, I didn't want to be a TV guy. This was not in the cards for me at all. I wanted to be a research meteorologist. I literally wanted to go to Antarctica for a year and be a research meteorologist. and to literally, just because I thought that sounded fascinating.
I like nerds, by the way.
I will get to Antarctica in my lifetime. It is on the bucket list. But then in my sophomore year of college, they started a TV station. My buddies kind of egged me on to try this out. I tried it out. There were 4 positions available. I got one of the positions. The only reason I got one of the positions because only 4 people tried out. But I kind of liked it. Okay, this is kind of neat. It's kind of 2 different jobs. I can still be a scientist, but I can also do this TV thing, which can be kind of fun. And so I feel super fortunate. I've had a very blessed path in my life. I moved up very quickly. I worked, this is my 5th job, but that was that I had coming out of college. So I went to Columbia, Missouri. I went to Sioux City, Iowa. I went to St. Louis as a part-timer. Thought I'd stay there forever because that's my hometown. But then I was offered the chief job in Des Moines. I was there for 3 years, and then I came to Milwaukee. And you know, the title chief, I mean, you're kind of just more of the person that's kind of the face of the station in terms of whether you want to be able to mold the content that your whole team is using and try to teach them better ways of telling the weather story. The title itself doesn't mean a whole lot. It usually means that you're doing the evening shows, although that's changing now. Of course, here in Milwaukee, chief meteorologists can be in the morning. Actually, anywhere in the country, a lot more chiefs are becoming from the morning shows. So it's just, I mean, it's a glorified title. It doesn't mean that I'm some kind of all-knowing, because believe me, the minute I think that is the minute I'm wrong, and it's a terrible forecast, and everybody lets me know of it.
That's awesome. Luke, you were chief right out of college, man.
I was, but I started in a really tiny market, and the interesting thing about that, how your life works. I went to UWM. As Mark mentioned, I was working with some of the pillars at that time, at that time, the juggernaut. I mean, Mark has built a brand. They're dominant number 1 almost every book now. But back in like the 90s, it wasn't always that way. And I'm not saying that as a dig to Mark or to 12. I mean, I know the history of that market. And, when I was working with these icons like Paul Joseph and John Milan, I saw that version of television, right? The Milwaukee version of TV. It's a little different when you take your first job in the small market. You kind of look around and you're going, I'm not in Milwaukee anymore. And
you're like, where's the rest of the station?
It's just us? Okay. All right. We can make this work. But, I didn't know, like Mark, I didn't know that I was going to go into television. I had John Milan pushing me in front of the camera. And I really didn't know any of the wiser. I just said, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And I remember people would make comments like, you gotta look, or, your voice, I think it could work, things like that. That'd be the feedback I'd get in my early days. And I honestly wanted to run away as far as I could from it when I first took my first job. I'm going, what did I get myself into? I just want to go back to Milwaukee. Well, it turns out, I signed 3 contracts up there. We bought our first home ever, had 2 of our kids born in Rhinelander. Rhinelander is a special spot for me. And that whole chief title and all that came because somebody else lied. They already had some guy offered the job. Some guy lied about his credentials. And here they could say, well, let's take a guy with a couple years of experience, but he lied to us. Or we could take this newbie, Luke, from Milwaukee's, got some bigger market, at least behind the scenes experience. And he's got a master's degree. That could maybe work if he could pull it off. And it was up to me, though. I had to sink or swim. And believe me, I felt like I was sinking quite a bit, especially in those early years. I'm just glad I stuck with it. It's been almost a 20-year run now, and we'll see how long it goes. You just don't know in this business anymore, especially as we are now getting into 2021, 2022. It's just unbelievable we're this far along.
Wow. So between the two of you, you have over 40 years of forecasting the weather here in Wisconsin. Let's talk nerdy just for a second. Why is it so difficult here, guys? I mean, and I'm not telling you you're bad at your job, which, by the way, I wrote down earlier in my notes. John Horst, he's the Bucs GM. Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM. David Stearns, the Brewers GM, and you guys. Other than that, everybody else doesn't think they can do other people's jobs. But those 4 jobs in the entire state of Wisconsin, everybody thinks they can do better than the people that have them. What is it about Wisconsin and the weather and just it seems so hit or miss sometimes? And I'm not throwing you under the bus, I promise.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things here. We're forecasting the future. That's the first thing, right? I mean, there's financial people. They're terrible, and they don't get half the bad rap that we do. We can get our forecasts right within a couple degrees for 20 days in a row, and you don't even know about it. But you miss the forecast by 1 hour from somebody expecting it to be dry, or let's say you forecast 5 inches of snow and you get 3, or you get 7, and you're blown out of the water. It's a tough task to forecast the future, to predict the future. I always tell people, I go, it's amazing we're as accurate as we are. Sometimes I get surprised and going, wow, we got a 6 or 7 day stretch of mid and upper 80s coming, and it'll happen. But nobody pays attention to that. You know what I'm saying? So it's difficult in the fact that you're trying to forecast the future. It's difficult because we have microclimates galore here. Like we're alluding to at the top of the show with Mark saying, one side of the county can be 20 degrees different from the other. It's just a difficult climate to forecast for.
Yeah, agreed 100%. We can be right 30 times in a row. It's the one time you're wrong. It's the only thing that people remember. It's amazing to me that you still get the emails and the phone calls and the social media. I wish my job would allow me to be wrong as much as you are. I wish I was right only 50% of the time and still not. Well, I mean, to be honest, yes. Do we make mistakes? It certainly does happen. And it's something that, I still take it personally. I don't want to be wrong. It doesn't feel good to be wrong. You don't want to ruin somebody's plans. But honestly, if people look at it objectively, forecasting has improved. In Luke and my time, that in our experience, even in 25 years, it has improved dramatically. Things have improved immensely in terms of timing, in terms of ability to show some of these small scale meteorological happenstances, whether that's the lake breeze, whether it's lake effect snow, we've gotten much better at. There are so many things that have improved, including long-range forecasting. You go back in the Milwaukee Bill Carlson days, back in the 50s and the 60s, he forecasted 2 days. Sometimes you might get out to 3. That was it. So people remember that. Oh, that Bill Carlson, he was always right. That Albert the Alley Cat, man, that thing was never wrong.
2 days.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, the 70s was the transition point to where you actually had meteorologists kind of start to flood television stations. Stations figured out, we can hire these nerds.
Well, Paul Joseph was one of the first in the entire country. He was hired in 1970, a month before I was born. He started at WTMJ.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in that transition time, a lot of these people were just ripping and reading the forecasts from the Weather Bureau at the time. And then when scientists actually became part of their station identity, like Mark said, you'd forecast out for a day or two. And it wasn't like down to the degree or, we'd say, you're going to get some snow. It wasn't. Now we get so research heavy, and it's just the way of the business. These stations want to get an edge over each other. They want to figure out what are our viewers wanting. So they'll do these focus groups. They'll ask a group of 50 people, do you want to know if it's going to rain at this time, this time, and this time? And you'll get more than half to raise their hand. And so that's what we try to do. The problem is there's inherent error in what we're trying to do. So the scope of accuracy has changed greatly. We're much, much better. We can get you down. I feel pretty comfortable in a 3-hour chunk of time now. 6-hour chunk of time, certainly better. Like my confidence is higher than even 20 years ago. But we're really kind of putting the cart before the horse sometimes with these down to the hour forecasts, a day or two out. Like tonight, I showed a futurecast graphic for Friday night into Saturday morning. Are those storms going to be right over us at 5 a.m. Saturday morning? Probably not. There's going to be some shift in that. But that's what I'm talking about with the scope of accuracy.
But wait, Luke, wait. My app told me that it was going to rain in 16 minutes and 33 seconds from now. And there's 11.5% chance that that's going to happen.
Right.
So there's a lot of armchair weatherologists that have now included into our discussion. That creates a whole nother realm of things, and also the ability for people to have access to the computer models that are out there because they're all available on the internet. And guess what? They go out sometimes 380 hours. And so if there's snow in that model, that's 2.5 weeks away. Whoa, we better put that on the internet and say, look what's coming. We're going to get slammed by a blizzard.
And then it gets shared like your wind chill graphic.
Correct.
Luke, your territory is the UP to Fond du Lac and all the way out to Shawano. Mark, you're forecasting from Fond du Lac to Kenosha and all the way out to Johnson Creek. How are you supposed to get that right? I mean, that's an entire state damn near, at least the eastern half of it.
The dreaded 0 to 12-inch forecast for snow. And it happens in my area all the time. And people are like, what do you mean 0 to 12 inches? Well, I mean 0 inches in Kenosha, and I mean 12 inches in Dodge and Fond du Lac counties. That happens here so often. And they're like, well, I could put out a 0 to 12 inch forecast. And then you got the graphic that'll get shared of the 0 to 60 inch forecast with the circle around the entire state of Wisconsin. So see, I was accurate again. So it's amazing. And that's the kind of, that snow forecasting can be really, that to me, that's the biggest challenge that I have. I don't know if Luke would agree, but there's such differences that can happen. And just, that's when a tiny change of 20 to 25 miles can make that heavy snow band, instead of it being over Milwaukee and Waukesha, now shifts that over Sheboygan over to Fond du Lac. And then you end up in Milwaukee with an inch or two of snow. And people they go crazy. There, you're wrong again. You're always blowing everything out of proportion. You're just doing scare tactics to make me watch.
It's true, though. I mean, snow forecasting is ridiculously hard because you have to hit the timing right. All right. You got to hit the location right. And then you have to hit what's called the snow ratio correct. You got to hit on 3 things for it to pan out. And I'll tell you right now, there is huge error in each one of those 3 things. Quick little story. I think it was 2 winters ago. Yeah, it wasn't this past winter. Previous winter to this one, we had like a 2 to 4 inch forecast in there or something. And there was a gentleman out in Waushara County. He'd called me with some negative feedback, to put it that way, the event before. I think we went one way or the other. Let's just say he was expecting 3 inches and he got 1. That sort of deal. And it happened twice in a row for them. But our forecast verified beautifully for the Fox Valley. Well, anyway, he calls me up and leaves a message, just a screaming message, that second missed event that he perceived as a missed event. And he doesn't realize that his number comes up on the caller ID. And I listened to this thing, and I was in a mood. And I said, I'm not going to let this one go. So
you call him back.
I called him back. I called him at his home. You could tell he was probably sitting in his recliner. It was about this time at night when we're recording this, and he couldn't believe that I had the audacity to call him back. And he tied into me again.
No, usually they'll stop if you reach out
so
like that.
I let him say what he wanted to say, and I asked him a simple question. I said, do you feel better now? He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you told me I'm terrible at my job. You said that I get paid to be wrong and all of this. And I asked him, I said, do you feel better now that you told me that right to my ear? And he said, no. I said, maybe next time, before you pick up the phone and want to rip on somebody, just think about that you're talking to a human being here. We, like Mark said, we don't want to be wrong. That's the last thing we want. I mean, it's literally the last thing we want. But we are going to be wrong. It's part of the game. Nobody came out here and said, hey, we're going to forecast the weather and we're going to be perfectly right every time. I've never seen a weather promotion do that. So I think the public, it's all about perception, right? The people in the Fox Valley for that event, I didn't hear from them. But the people out to the west, that particular event underperformed. It's just going to happen. The next time it could be the Valley and they get a little bit more. It's just going to happen. I think part of the deal as a viewer and us to them, we have to have some civility, some minimum level of respect. Don't call my voicemail and use every letter in the book. Just don't do that.
Well, we're going to wrap it up with these guys in just a bit. I have some other questions that I think there are some words in this business that might push your buttons. We're back in a minute. This is Inside Wisconsin.
Helpful critiques, ideas, great stories, people we should know, the great bar in your town, the fish fry you want to know, the fish boil, anything that you want to reach out to us with. We are happy. We are here. You can be the inputters. We're here to listen.
Shut up and sit down.